And we want to continue this conversation with Christopher Chan. He's the advisory chair of the Asian American Action Fund Georgia chapter. Hi, Christopher. Thanks for taking the time to be with us here on Canada Tonight. And actually, I want to begin by extending my condolences because, you know, no matter how this event is characterized, the reality is the impact on the victims and your community. How are you feeling? How is the Asian American community in Atlanta feeling tonight after these events?
Yeah, the community here is grieving. We're in shock, and these horrific crimes have really, brought a lot of attention to more of a nationwide trend. Not only what we saw in Atlanta the past few months, but a growing nationwide trend of violence against Asian Americans.
I want to get your reaction to some of the sheriff's comments this afternoon. We only heard some of them there, where he talked about the suspect giving his motivations a sex addiction, that he was, removing temptation. But he also spoke about and got some flack for talking about the fact that this suspect had a bad day, and that's how this day ended. What went through your mind when you heard this press conference today?
I mean, I'm a lawyer by trade, and these statements definitely are very self-serving and really mask the what I think might be the real motives behind this horrific crime. But I think we need to let the police do a full investigation into his possible social media and communications and see if there was any racial hatred or any racial animus with the suspect.
Talk to me a little bit about what the Asian American community has gone through this last year with the pandemic. We know anti-Asian sentiment is on the rise, not just in the U.S., here in Canada as well, since COVID-19 has taken over the world. So this is happening on the backdrop of that. Talk to me a little bit about hearing about this event in light of the year that has been.
Right. Yeah, it's been a very difficult year for all of us, for all Americans, for people around the world. But in particular, Asian Americans, I believe, have suffered a brunt of some of the trauma around where the virus has supposedly originated from, particularly from the last administration terming it in very offensive terms that politicized the virus's origins and really painted a target on Asian Americans' backs. Regardless of what your political leanings are, words have meaning, and when you describe the virus in such terms as the last administration did, you're going to suffer consequences for that, and the Asian Americans are suffering those consequences.
What's the importance of labeling a crime like this if it is hate motivated? I mean, we already know many facts. We know at least one of the massage parlors had, was young Asian massage. We know that the suspect had frequented these places, so we presume that he would have known who the staff were there. How important is it to label a crime as a hate crime if, regardless, the outcome is going to be the same? It is a murder, and we have victims. How important is it to have that language attached, if that's what it is?
Right. Yeah, I think there's two impacts there. There's a legal definition of what hate crime is, and I don't practice in that area, but I've read enough to at least talk to you all about it. But there is a legal definition, and there'd be certain penalties, and he'd be potentially tried under the new hate crime statute here in Georgia, and possibly there might be federal penalties as well. But I think more importantly is the public's perception of this crime as a hate crime, whether it's a legal definition or not. If there was any kind of racial animus or even racial targeting here, which there appears to have been because most of the victims were Asian, regardless of their occupation, that in the public's opinion has already painted this series of crimes as a hate crime, and that unfortunately is what's going to remain in the public's eye for a long time to come.
All right, Christopher Chan is the advisory chair of the Asian American Action Fund Georgia chapter. Thanks for taking the time to be with us on what we know is a difficult evening for you.
Thanks for having me.
Well, one state representative in Georgia is calling for authorities to treat the killings as a hate crime. Nguyen is the representative for Georgia's 89th district and spoke with us earlier this evening. Here's what she had to say.
We have evidence that the 3 businesses that he targeted were Asian-owned businesses that have Asian employees. And as a result, 6 of the 8 people who died were Asian women. There's no getting around those facts. But here in Georgia, our hate crime laws also protect gender. So women are protected under that statute. And so even if we take away the notion that it wasn't racially motivated, it was certainly gender-based. And quite frankly, when we think about Asian American women and Asian women in the history of, the country, there is an intersection between violence-based misogyny, racism, and gender. And so, I think that the framing of this by the police is kind of in line with what we've seen in the past, where there's justification for, the profile of a young, white, disaffected male who is upset for one reason or another and decides to purchase a firearm and goes and kills people through the means of a mass shooting. So it's not a new framework, and it centers the suspect instead of centering the victims.